Hi everyone, this is Jacinta Bader. I am going to teach you guys about clickers. I use clickers in my classroom quite often rather than programs that need a device for every student or per group of students. I really enjoy using clickers because only the teacher has to have a device and the students have a note card with the code on it, and the teacher can then scan whatever side they're holding up to correlate with what they think is the correct answer. Um, and you can get real-time feedback from the assessment that you are giving the students. So clickers are great for like warm-up activities, exit slips, lesson refreshers. You could do it for any sort of formative or even a summative assessment if needed. You can use it really in any subject area, and it's super easy. And just a lot of the problems at least in my district, where we do not have one-to-one or even close to one-to-one technology in our district, and we rely sometimes on our students having their devices, and some teachers struggle with making sure students are actively engaged in lesson when they have their phones out. This just kind of eliminates a lot of problems that some teachers have in their classrooms. We struggle with kids charging their phones in the middle of a game or an assessment that requires them to use their own device. We've noticed that kids' cell phones die on them, or they're getting text messages, they're not on the appropriate page they need to be on their device, or if they're not connecting to the school Wi-Fi, which is against our school policy. So this just kind of eliminates those kind of problems to make sure you're focusing on the content rather than discipline with cell phones. It also makes sure that if a student doesn't have a device, that they aren't left out from participation. So to begin, once you sign up for your account, I log into my Google account. You can, from here, the very first thing you want to do, my information's already showing up here, but the first thing that you want to do is create your cards. So if you just click on cards in the upper right hand corner, and it takes you to different format sizes for printing purposes. I recommend for paper saving, the standard, you get 40 numbers, and it's a half a sheet, it ends up being a half a sheet of paper. I do mine in cardstock instead of regular paper. I tried with regular paper, but it was kind of flimsy, and when the students were folding it up, sometimes the scanner didn't catch them because the students were letting it kind of collapse a little bit. So cardstock really seemed to be the trick. I also recommend do not laminate the cards. I wanted my cards to last for a long time, my first set that I made, and I laminated them. And I just noticed that again, the scanning, if my lights are on and they're hitting a card in the right way, it kind of makes a reflector for the scanner on my phone to pick up a student's answer. So I do cardstock, and my cards have lasted for quite some time. I assign students class numbers I have the shoe rack where the students put their cell phones in when it's a day that they're not supposed to be using their phones. So my kids are pretty routine of knowing their class numbers. So I assign them a number, and they know their class numbers, and that's the one they get. So each card is numbered on each side of the code. It's a different code for every number. So there's two. And then if you notice, it says A, B, C, D. So when the students receive their clicker, they have to hold up the letter of whatever, if they think the answer is D, they have to make sure that D is facing up. If they think it's A, they have to make sure A is facing up. And when I go around the room with my device and scan, it picks up whatever answer is on the top. They have larger font cards, You can get one on one sheet per page if you wanted to do something like that. You can also, those are all free, which is something I forgot to mention. This is a completely free program. You can, if you want matte laminated version of the cards, you can buy them on Amazon. I think that the ones you can print out work perfectly fine. And I share them with 6 different classes. Oftentimes we do clicker activities for quite a few days in a row, so they've lasted pretty long. Just putting them on the card stock. So once you print your cards out, you create your classes. So I have a couple class periods already in here. There is a demo class option if you wanted to run through it, run through the program to troubleshoot some areas. To make a new class, you go to Classes, Add a new class, and you can color code your classes if you wanted when they show up on the regular page to keep track of, to notice the differences between each class. If you can color code them. If you're inputting a whole class roster, you don't have to enter each kid's name individually. You can go to Add Roster. I created a document with some of the teachers' names I work with. You can go into Progress Book and copy and paste directly in here, and that way they'll be alphabetical in there for you. And again, like I gave my students numbers I mentioned earlier with the card, so then that way all the data that's being collected, I know that I have card number 1, Wendy always has card number 2, and the students then know their number and which numbers associated with their name, and then when it comes to the data collection, their names are already in the program. I don't have to look up who was number 2. You just have to make sure that the kids are taking the right cards to begin with. If you teach lower level kids and you don't do class numbers, you could write on the back of each card the students' names who are supposed to have that specific card. If you're using the same class set for multiple class periods, you could do something like that. My kids know their number, so. But once your classes are made, you can, so there's the class that I was made with 11 names in it. You can go to your library, and this is where you're going to add in your questions. So I started trying to organize my clickers a little bit. I did with my To Kill a Mockingbird story elements. I started using clickers with part 2 of the novel To Kill a Mockingbird, so all of my questions that I have about part 2 are in here. And if I want, I even made like smaller folders for different chapters. So you really could organize a lot your questions ahead of time. So question like this. I added my question in, and then you need to actually add it to whichever class you would like to allow the option of answering when you post it on real time. So that's down here if you notice the class periods here that I had added that question to. You go down to just add question, add to your queue, and you just put which class you want to also be included in that question. And if you notice, the Akron Ed Tech class came up here where my other classes are here. That is because these classes have actually answered that question. So I can click on that and it'll show me the data.